Okay, we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here this evening. Clerk, if we could have a roll call.
Counselor Long?
I'm sorry, Counselor Long. Yes, I'm here, I'm sorry.
Counselor Combs?
Here.
Counselor Myers?
Here.
Counselor Ratliff?
Here.
We have four.
Our invocation this evening will be led by John Roselle, Cherokee Nation Indian Child Welfare. John?
Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Father, we stand and just as humbly as we can, I stand humbly in a room full of veterans and just in awe. Father, as we come up on Independence Day, and we thank you for the fact that we live in the greatest nation on earth, the greatest nation the earth has ever seen, Father, and because of brave men such as these right here to my left, and we can never thank them enough. We thank you for your protection over them while they served our great nation. And Father, we ask you for your mighty hand of protection for those who are serving us, both at home and abroad right now, today. And Father, just again, thank you for blessing these great United States. Father, I ask you for your continued blessing here. I ask that you would be with the council tonight, be with everybody that is assembled here tonight. Father, that your hand would be over their business and that you would just help common sense to prevail, Father, and cooler heads to prevail, and that you would just be glorified and lifted up, Father, and just thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, above all else. We love you and we praise you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. You would join me with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will begin this evening with public comments. Comments will be accepted from the general public concerning topics that are not included in the meeting's agenda. Individuals will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time, and the cumulative total of all comments from the public shall not exceed 15 minutes. Preference will be given to Tahlequah residents. In compliance with the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act, no action or discussion is permitted by the City Council on any issue or topic raised by a speaker during this public comment period. Is there anyone who would like to address?
I'd like to address. Hi, I'm Steve Ward, Mayor Catron and Councilman. Better keep these glasses on. In front of me, I've got a sample ballot of the 2013 bond that's been a sore spot for kind of everybody in Tahlequah. In January 2013, the citizens of Tahlequah approved a proposition that had a bunch of different projects that were supposed to be done on it. Since the administration has changed, can you update us as citizens on where we're at on that? What's been in each like Phoenix renovation, how much was spent? Can you kind of update the public on that? And once again, Sue and Trey, I know you hadn't been here all along, but Bree, Dower, Stephen, where we at?
Well, this being the public comment period, Steve, we can't respond to that question, but they can comment, but they can't take any action. I'm sorry, I've just been corrected. Thank you, Steve.
I'm just trying to figure out when the public will know on what was spent and what is remaining. There was an estimated total that was to be raised in it for $21,112,339. My understanding that went over a little $24 million. Probably all some are sitting in those seats because the answers couldn't be answered before with the prior administration. Where are we at? Where are the numbers?
Steve, I'll just tell you this. I sent that email earlier this week to follow up with Daniel, our finance director, and said, I don't know where we at line by line. Let's see every project that's listed on the ballot, how much was spent on it, how much was allocated for it, how much was spent on it, and what's our balance. So As soon as I get a response to that
I
email.
know that, but we've been told that for a couple months now.
Yeah.
So who's the people that are responsible for that? The finance director and who? Is that you, Mr.
I can
Carter?
get you the numbers.
Huh?
I can get you the numbers, and Trey did send that to the finance director.
Okay. When can the public expect those?
As soon as we get the numbers, we'll.
Well, that's a awful obscure answer. So is there a timeline we're looking for?
I can't just pull a number out of the top of my head. I mean, we'll have to go through them line by line, like Trey said. We'll get you the numbers.
How did the numbers not get done along the way, I guess, is the next question, if we don't have the numbers?
I apologize, Steve. I allowed you to talk a little bit more than we can at this point. We're gonna have to cut you off, but you can, make it.
Okay. Well, this is something that I
We'll be getting updates. We'll be getting updates.
appreciate very much from the public.
How about if we get the information to the newspaper? And
That'd be great.
Like that.
Mayor and council members, I've spoke to you several occasions, but I have a couple of ladies that are here tonight, hadn't had a chance to speak directly to the council. They're going to do that. One of the persons is Nelda Littlejohn. When she came to town as a veteran, her and her sister took over the Veterans Council, been a backbone of the Veterans Council for years now, and she's going to speak. And after her, Barbara Foreman, who's the Veterans Director at the Cherokee Nation, would like to speak to you briefly. But any of you know Barbara, you know what kind of lady she is and what great work she does.
Thank you very much. I am Nelda Littlejohn. I'm a veteran. I would like to tell you what my t-shirt says in case you can't see it. It says, I think a man with a helmet defending our country should make more money than a man with a helmet defending a football. And I do. I'm a veteran. My sister is a veteran. My brothers were veterans. 20 members of my family at least have been veterans. So I am up the veteran. And I think this proposal that we had about the memorial was wonderful. I understood that it might not have, might got a little iffy. I think anything we can do to support a veteran and make a veteran welcome and make him known and appreciated should be done in this city, especially because of all the things we have here that we appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, council, mayor. I'm Barbara Foreman, and I come to you tonight as a daughter of a World War II Purple Heart recipient, and also as the director of the Cherokee Nation Office of Veteran Affairs. And what I want to say to you tonight is the Cherokee Nation has supported the project from the very beginning.
Is this in relation to the Veteran Memorial?
Yes.
Yes, same as.
That's an item on the agenda, so we'd have to wait until that item comes up.
Attorney, I led her astray then. I thought we could speak about that before the council meeting
No,
started.
I'm sorry, that's specifically on the agenda, so we'll
Gotcha.
I mean, I have to do that again?
We gave you a little attitude because I wasn't
Okay.
for sure we were going to, so.
Okay, sorry.
My fault. Sorry.
It's the first item after that, so.
You're in.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Apologize.
Line item that's not on the agenda.
Sorry.
You were trying to get her straightened out.
Good evening, my name's Nancy Dyson, and I just want to urge you not to rely solely on the local newspaper to inform the public. A lot of people don't want to buy that newspaper, so I hope that there's some other way to disseminate information.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Louise Porter, and I'm a public affairs specialist with the U.S. Small Business Administration Office of Disaster Assistance. And I just wanted to come by and let everybody know that during presidentially declared disasters, someone with damaged property lives in a declared county, as Cherokee County is. They're eligible to register with FEMA. FEMA's number is 1-800-621-FEMA. So when people register, based on their answers, they may be referred over to the Small Business Administration. And people get super confused because the SBA provides low interest rate loans to homeowners and renters as well as businesses of all sizes. So when they get that application, if they complete it and are approved, then the loan becomes an option. They're not required to accept it. But if they are declined, and the biggest reason for being declined is lack of repayment ability, as in I can't afford a loan, or poor credit history. And if they are declined, then most people are referred back to FEMA for their other needs assistance program. So it's super important that people complete that application. Truthfully, it's up to them, but there's only so far FEMA may be able to assist them if they have that referral. And in Cherokee County, it's been about 60% of people have been referred over to the SBA for their personal property and their real estate. And the deadline at this point is July 31st for completing the application, registering with FEMA, completing the SBA application. So for contacting the federal programs, it is July 31st. Now, SBA also has another program for businesses with economic injury. So physical damage for businesses and economic injury. And economic injury is to help businesses keep their doors open through the recovery period. And that deadline isn't until March 2nd of 2020 because sometimes businesses don't realize for quite some time that they have been economically impacted. So that deadline is pushed out a little further. And two last things. In Cherokee County, there is going to be a disaster recovery center where the SBA will also have representatives. And that is going to be only 4 days. It opens on Friday, July 5th at 10 a.m. And it will be open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then on Saturday through Monday, so July 6th through the 8th, it will be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then it will close at the close of business on July 8th. And it will be at Peggs Middle School on West Hickory Avenue in Peggs, Oklahoma. And the very last thing I wanted to say is that if anyone had any questions on that, or if they wanted to check where there was a local recovery center, if they wanted to get assistance over the phone, the SBA has a really good customer service center number, or really good customer service center, and the number is 1-800-659-2955. So that's 1-800-659-2955. And if someone Googled SBA Disaster Customer Service Center, it would pop right up. That's all.
One statement. Jamie, can we share that on the city Facebook page if we haven't already? Because that was a lot of information.
Yeah, are you leaving right now?
No, I'll stay on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Are there any further comments? Something that's not on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none. The consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so that members of the City Council, by unanimous consent, can designate routine items to be approved by one motion. Any item proposed on the consent agenda not meeting with the approval of all council members will be removed and heard in regular session.
I'd like to remove item A and move to approve the rest.
I'm sorry, can I also request that we remove item B as well? Councilor Ratliff, you want to modify that motion?
Please remove item A and B and move to pass the rest.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? No discussion. No discussion? Okay. Roll call?
Counselor Combs?
Yes.
Counselor Hires?
Yes.
Counselor Ratliff?
Yes.
Counselor Long?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Moving on to announcements, presentations, and reports. Chief Hammonds, I believe you had something you wanted to share first.
Mayor and Council, just wanted to let you guys know that this recently went to the State Firefighters Convention. That's the Oklahoma State Firefighters Association. It's been in existence since 1894. Our fire department's been in existence since 1895. There were a few departments that were recognized this year, and I wanted to come back and share this with you. We have consistently been members of the Oklahoma State Firefighters Association for over 100 years. They presented us with a plaque as appreciation. That is an organization that represents both volunteer and full-time firefighters in the state of Oklahoma. Tahlequah has had 4 presidents represent the state for that organization. Was very pleased to get this and come to find out, did a little bit of research and background. Their historian has found that we're a little bit of confusion, but either the fourth or fifth oldest fire department in the state. We still have the oldest fire station remaining standing in the state of Oklahoma. So pretty proud of that. Wanted to share that with you on behalf of the fire department and state organization. So there you go.
It is beautiful.
Thank you.
We have on the list recognition years of service for Christopher McClure. Is Mr. McClure with us?
I just want to come say thank you.
Very well.
Very much for your service.
Do we have any reports from any of the other organizations? Library, Chamber, Tahlequah Main Street, Britain. Any city departments with report? Okay. Hearing none. Item number 5, discussion possible action on items removed from the consent agenda. We'll go with item number 1 first, Mr. Ratliff.
Yeah, if you look back at the minutes from June the 3rd, item 18, this is the day my son was born and I was not present, and on item 18 it says A's Ratliff. So I'd like to scratch that from the list. Yeah, that's all that I saw.
Is there any other discussion on the minutes? And we need a motion to approve them as modified.
So moved.
Motion to approve as modified. Seconded. Did we have a roll call?
Who was first?
Great.
Counselor Hires,
Yes.
Counselor Ratliff,
Yes.
Counselor Long,
Yes.
Counselor Combs.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And item number 2, the removal of the financial report. I would like to just talk for a moment about the cash balances that are listed in the financial report. We have a new counselor, and just wanted to point out the cash in bank as relates to the revenue bond and the accounts receivable is not actually cash in a bank. Those large negative amounts, the negative $4,445,000 that's reflected here, really is not a part of our cash balances, and so you have to take those out in order to get to an actual cash balance. And since we are going into a period where we will be monitoring our cash closely, I wanted you to be aware of that, and to also know that we've requested some comparative cash reports to be provided to you in future so that you'll be able to tell going into a meeting where we are.
And we've discussed this before, I believe. I mean, not exactly that number, but I think there was some question as to where that fund balance was coming from.
Correct. And Mr. Carr says he has extra copies if anybody needs a copy.
These were sent out, but in case
Yeah, I
anybody
didn't
didn't get a
my
copy.
copy yet, so thank you.
Does anybody else?
So is there a motion to accept the May financial report?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Could we have a roll call?
Counselor Ratliff,
Yes.
Counselor Long,
Yes.
Counselor Combs.
Yes.
Counselor Hires,
Yes.
motion carried.
I think I've got it someplace.
Then, item number 6, discussion and possible action to support the Tahlequah Veterans Council and the creation of the Tahlequah Veterans Memorial. Councilor Hires.
Yes. So this is if you've been at the council the last couple of meetings, this is something that we've been talking about. And so I invited them here tonight to visit and tell us a little bit about the memorial. I think we have the artists in the room as well, and we have somebody that definitely would like to speak to the memorial.
Didn't blame me.
So I will turn it over to, if it's okay with the mayor, I'll turn it over to Mr. Nichols. And then from there you can.
Thank you very much. I've lost a good friend over this, Attorney. I thought I knew what was going on, but obviously I don't. But now, Barbara, would you please come over here? Well, go ahead and you finish yours.
So I get to do overs now? I apologize. I try to listen to my co-organizations
I'll take
here
it.
for that.
All right, I would
Shall I start again? Sure. Okay. My name is Barbara Foreman, and I am the director of the Cherokee Nation Office of Veteran Affairs. I am also the daughter of a World War II Purple Heart recipient. And so I come before you tonight asking for your support for the monument. I believe that it will be something that, for instance, the group that we have with us here today, would you all stand that are members of the Purple Heart group? So we see these gentlemen, and we're honored to see them here. They fought for us and were wounded in combat, and that's why they are Purple Heart recipients. They signed their name on the dotted line for us, and I feel like the monument that they want to put up is not only to honor them, but it will be a beautiful addition to the city of Tahlequah. It will put Tahlequah on the map for all veterans, not just Purple Heart recipients, but all veterans. We have other groups here tonight that are in support of this. I see our people from the DAV sitting over there. I see our VFW. And so, we have a lot of people in support of this. And so we're asking you tonight to think about it. And I just want to say the Cherokee Nation has supported this project from the very beginning. We have supported with funds, and we're here to see it out. And so please consider that for us this evening. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stephen, I'm really not sure what you all expect of me, but I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. I might just provide for you a timeline. When I first, Sue, as you'll remember, and Ed, when I first briefed you, I assumed that the whole city council was familiar with this project that was going on within the city. We've been working on it about 4 years. One of the very first things that we did when we began this project is to get the city involved, and with the mayor, former mayor, and we thought city manager, but so what that was about 3.5 years ago. We kicked this event off at a Christmas dinner with the Purple Heart, where we invited all the former senator Jim Wilson, our former representative Mike Brown. We invited the county commissioners. We invited our current representative. We invited the mayor. We invited Mark Wayne Mullen. In fact, he approved of our drawing on that first meeting that we had. And again, that was 3 years ago when we did that at the Christmas event. So we thought everything was going on fine. We've raised $100,000. We wanted to be sure that the city wanted this project that we were working on very hard, diligently. We wanted the city on board with us as we went along in this process. not only to raise the money, because we wanted to have integrity when we went out with our fundraising efforts, that folks would know that we had full support of the city behind us. But in addition to that, to find a location for the memorial. And as I mentioned to you, when we began to talk with the mayor about where a good location would be, he mentioned to us about a city park. And we didn't like that idea, just to be honest with you. We know it's going to cost a little bit more money for the infrastructure in front of Reesers, but we think it's the safest location in town to place that memorial. We're going to have $100,000 invested in it. It's going to be something that a lot of people are going to want to look at, want to see. We don't want it damaged in the park or pushed over or torn down where we'd have to go out and raise another $100,000. So that's the reasoning for our location. We identified that location out in front of Walmart and Research because we knew it was a high traffic area. Doesn't have a lot of foot traffic. There was a lot of other variables that was involved in that. And we worked very diligently to get that spot from got the Department of Transportation in Muskogee to help us with it. Fortunately, the Department of Transportation director in Muskogee is he's a Marine, so he helped us along with the project. Jim Wilson, who many of you knew, said you'll never get that spot. The Department of Transportation is never going to get you that spot. You can do everything you say you're going to do, but you'll not get that spot. Well, we got that spot, and we're glad, and we think it's a great spot. It's going to take a little funds for the infrastructure. Now you can fire questions at me, or you can talk with we can have the artist come up here and tell you a little bit about what his reasoning was, because he was come on up, Troy. He was kind of the driving force behind this. It was him that said that we needed to do this in Muskogee, Oklahoma. So Troy, you want to talk to him a little bit what your vision was for the memorial, and we'll go from there. Go ahead, I'll get out of your way.
Well, it's like Don said, Mayor and Councilman, glad to be here tonight. Yeah, it's like Don was saying, one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to show my appreciation for the veterans and to give them an art piece that they could be proud of and that, that they could be able to come to. And especially with the directory, the repository that we're wanting to also put in, which will actually tell their stories. It all started, I did not have to go to war. I was not, I was not drafted. I'm going to say that. And the reason that I was not drafted is because I felt at a time that there was no war. It was over, especially during the Vietnam War. And it was because of what the men have done that went to war that I didn't have to go. And so I wanted to do something, I wanted to give something back in return. And that this is my way of showing my appreciation to the veterans, especially of Tahlequah. And I hope that everyone will feel the same, because I really think it will be an asset to Tahlequah. I really believe that it will show our appreciation to our veterans. And I also believe that it will be an education for children. I think we're losing, I think we're losing some of the respect today. We're not teaching our children enough about our veterans and what they've done for us. And this being said in front of Reesers out south of town at the Tahlequah welcome sign, it will be an everyday vision for people to appreciate what our veterans have done. So thank you.
I welcome to try to answer any questions you might have and bring you up to speed. I did provide for the council members, and I'm surprised because I had sent that to the Chamber of Commerce on 3 different occasions before the election. I believe, Mayor, that I sent that to your office, and hopefully you got it on 2 or 3 different occasions. It's a small packet, but it has a packet of information about why this location was chosen in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. There was other possibilities for us, other cities that we could have looked at, but we chose Tahlequah, Oklahoma, because whether you know it or not, Tahlequah is about 200 miles from the geographical center of the United States. It's close to the 49 corridor, that runs north and south through Oklahoma. It's close to the 40 corridor. So we thought it was a location that veterans from around the country, and we really do believe that. My experiences with the Department of Veterans Affairs for 30 years, run a national program for them, and with the Military Order of the Purple Heart, where I was a national officer and traveled around the country doing job fairs and business opportunity summits for them. I'm pretty familiar with veterans memorials. I don't know of anything that's going to be like this memorial in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. We're going to take advantage of all the technologies that are available to store a database. As I mentioned to you, at least on the video, Stephen, I mentioned that we consider this a living memorial where veterans of our generation can come and tell their story and be captured in a database. But future generations of veterans could do that. Ed, you asked the question how we were going to maintain it back in our meeting that we had, and I didn't address that issue then. It's our intention to ask the veterans to help us with the maintenance of the memorial, but when they give us their story and we record that, we're going to ask them to make a small donation and to have their story captured there. We envision if we do it right and have a dedication day like we think we can have, and if we can talk the mayor and some of the other people into helping us get Gary Sinise in town. Do you know who Gary Sinise is? Gary Sinise was...
Lieutenant Dan.
Right, thank you. Yes, he was.
Everybody knows that.
Everybody knows that. If we can get him to come to town, he would draw veterans from all over the state of Oklahoma and all over the country. He does a lot of work with DAV, and one of our chapter commander of the DAV is here. I sent to the adjutant for the state of Oklahoma asking him to talk with Gary Sinise at the national convention of the DAV, which will be going on in Orlando, I believe next month. Is that right?
Correct. We're talking.
And so we're going to visit with him. We'd like for him to come to our beautiful city. We'd like to pack the stadium up there, or the Northeastern State University's event center, and have him perform. He has a band, have him perform, enroll people in the project that we've got going on. We think it's feasible to have 5,000 to 10,000 people in town that day. So that's kind of what we got in mind. You probably have questions if you haven't had time to process all of it yet. But we are looking to the city. We need your help with the infrastructure cost. As I mentioned in I think my written statement to you last time or time before last, when we initially began to look at it, I don't know if I put that in the statement or not, we thought that this infrastructure would cost us in the neighborhood of $120,000. Since that time, the city engineer has advised us that instead of $120,000, it'd be in the neighborhood of $72,000. We've done some work on our own by looking at what it might cost, and we don't think it's going to cost that amount of money, but we do need some support from the city of Tahlequah.
Hey Don, with
Yes,
that
sir.
said, I finally got a hold of this, you and I have been in conversation with this Belt Bridge Company, and he's coming down Wednesday.
Good.
We're gonna go look, we're gonna go to research and look at
Great,
the Little
thank
Creek,
you.
and then he finally responded back. He didn't really give me the, a detailed response like I was hoping for. It says, I can build the reinforced concrete box, that is the pay item for Class A concrete and reinforced steel. It says he can build it. He doesn't say, for a year for 10 or 20,000 or 50,000. He didn't give us any of that detail, but I guess we'll go with that Wednesday when he comes down.
So that'd be great.
And then also another thing I want to say
Thank
is
you.
I don't know, I don't know if anybody in the audience has seen this rendering. So if you want to take this and pass it around for everybody
Sure.
that's out there,
Maybe I can get one of the folks to help
you
me.
can pass that. Just let them pass it around. So 'cause we've all seen it, but everybody that's here might like to have an idea of.
Yeah. So we're looking at, we're looking somewhere now in the neighborhood of phase one where we could get the slab poured. We've already raised the money for the memorial. We got $100,000. One of the things that's kind of critical for us is we need a decision on whether the city wants to go with it or not. You want the memorial here because we've got the art piece finished. Troy has, not we. He did it all. That we're ready to take to the vendor, and it's made out of clay, and we got to move that pretty quick, or he's going to lose this 5 4 inch rendering of what the 17-foot memorial is going to look like. He's been storing it out of his house. We've kept it in air conditioning, but we got to go with it. So if you can give us some kind of idea of what direction you want to head, we need to know.
I've got one question: is how hypothetically, if we end up putting this thing south of town,
yes, sir,
and you're talking about 5,000 or 10,000 people coming for a kind of a kickoff, or what was it you called it?
Well, dedication.
Dedication. Okay.
Yes.
So after that point, then as far as does this item start to appear on map? How is word spread that this is where people need to come to see this monument? How do we?
Well, I belong to a national organization, it's Military Order of the Purple Heart. We've already started publicizing this memorial in Tahlequah based on our discussions with the former mayor. There was an article in our national magazine a month ago about this project. So we'll continue to promote it at our national conventions. Do I think those people could come here and tell their story? I certainly do. And the DAV likewise, they'll publicize it at their national convention. So my experience with the Department of Veterans Affairs over the years, we work with service organizations all the time. So we know where to go to put the information into the system, and that word to go is the national conventions. So that's
okay. I think that's how we get on the map there, is working with the different partners, the Cherokee Nation, even the Tourism Council at the Chamber, to help start really promoting that this is there. So you've segued kind of into a good reason why we're here tonight, because I think that we've talked around this for several months now, but we've not actually taken a direct initiative or a direct vote on saying that we as the city council will support the structure, which is I think really what you all need to be able to firm up your funding and be able to get this project moving forward. And so that's why it's on the agenda tonight, and that's what I propose that we do as a city council. Of course, I'm just one, I'm not several, but I'll make a motion, but I think others want to say something. But I think we need to have some sort of motion in order.
I want to say that I've never been against it. When I first heard of it a couple of months ago, I thought it was a great deal. And I have 2 family members that are Purple Heart recipients. I have one in World War II and one in the Korean War, and several other veterans in my family. I did not serve myself, but I'm very proud to be associated with them and with you as well. So I'm in full support of doing what we can, whether it's as a city or public-private partnership, getting this thing done.
Thank you. By the way, it's for all veterans, not just Purple Heart veterans.
Right.
We want everybody to come to Tahlequah and tell their story and put that video up for their family to come and view. Thank you.
Can I get clarification? How much of the $285,000 that's on this packet that you gave us, how much of that are you requesting financially from the city? If you could refresh me on that.
Well, these were figures that we started off with when we were looking at another vendor. I just gave you the packet that I knew that had been provided the city some months ago. What we were actually going to go with another vendor on the payment to Crucible. That's a vendor in Oklahoma, and they're about $18,000 more than what we're going to need down at the heart of the arts in Texas. The infrastructure I mentioned to you, we initially thought the bridge and all that was going to cost us $120,000. Your city engineer came back with a different figure and said, no, it's not 120, it's 72 now. We've done some work on our own, and we think that we can do some things, and people's going to help us. We know people that move the dirt. And the only issue we don't know, the city attorney, is how much can we allow that to be done on ODOT property, or can we have service in kind, if that's what you call it, people that come and help us with it, or
that just depends on the relationship or the arrangement reached with ODOT, and what kind of insurance you all need to provide or the city for movement of dirt on their right of way.
I'm trying to answer your question. I'm not,
So I don't,
not this.
I mean, I guess that'd fall, not to ask you a question, but I'm curious now that you said that, would we have a written confirmation with ODOT?
Yes, we
allowing
do.
for the
We have a
project
written confirmation with ODOT.
that has certain requirements on liability policies and things like that in place?
I don't know that they addressed that issue. In fact, the city has that. You actually have that.
Sure, for our.
In fact, I think Ed
I
has
think
that.
one of the
I
big
don't know if Sue
requirements
has
is that
that.
it has to be fenced.
So I think to answer Councilor Long's question, by the proposal, it was 120,000.
Right.
From that, they did the city engineer. The city engineer came back at 72. They believe that it could be less than the 72, but it could also be more. We don't really know that until we start kind of getting into the project. And so and then it could be even less because this will be done in phases.
Yes.
And so a phase, I mean, there could be a donor, a sponsor, somebody come in, between phase 1 and phase 3 that could help, offset some of that cost as well. And so tonight, I think what the group really needs more than us putting a dollar amount to it is a statement saying, yes, we support it. And then as we go, my vision would be then as we work with the city engineer to get kind of an engineered plan, that will come back to us and we'll approve the actual allocation of the money, and we'll have to put it into the budget because it was not a budgeted item, and we can work through all of that in the next couple of months as we move forward.
So, and you have the agreement from ODOT that Grant was asking you about,
That
have the terms and conditions?
The city actually has that. The city engineer has that. Now, I
The city
understand that's a
engineer has
contract. We actually have that plan that you're talking about
Given that
already.
to you,
No,
city attorney?
I haven't reviewed
Okay.
it. I'm
So-
assuming it's just a piggyback on our signage in ODOT right away right now, is my guess. Is that right?
It's similar to,
That's my guess, because I mean, we already have the Tahlequah, welcome to Tahlequah sign out there, which is probably, this is a piggyback on that, is my guess.
Okay.
did I answer
I
your
have not
question
reviewed that.
about funding?
Well,
We
I
got
think the answer to-
everything
right.
covered on here. The only thing we're looking for from the city is
Okay.
the infrastructure build out. We're not looking for anything else from you guys.
Okay.
So the 120 of
Right.
us. So if you're ready for a motion, Madam Mayor, I would make a motion that we support the Veterans Council in the creation of the Tahlequah Veterans Memorial to allow the project to move forward into the next phase of engineering.
There's a motion and second. Is there further discussion? If not, do we have roll?
I'd clarify if I can, just in your motion, you didn't put a dollar amount or anything like that. Are you suggesting that 120 cap like you talked about, or?
I mean, if we need to put a dollar cap on it now, I would cap it at the 120.
Or are you just
So
saying
that's
general
the-
support and then come back later for a dollar amount?
I think general support and then we come back later with a dollar.
Just wanted to be clear.
Is my thought process.
Yeah, I
We
think.
get the engineer, they said they've done a little bit, so I think the engineer, I assume it's Mr. Kelly that's the engineer on this project. So I think between him engineering it and the work that they've actually been able to potentially do with their money will change his figures.
Yeah, I've got a copy of the plans, and so when this bridge guy comes on Wednesday, we'll discuss in detail a little bit more cost. So there may be some additional savings there, hopefully. And so, I don't think that we necessarily have to put a dollar on it right now, but
I just want to be clear if it's just a motion for support or a motion with a financial tie-in. That's all I was trying to clarify.
I think the motion for support is what I think we need now, then to come back when we know more specific numbers. Because varying from 72 to 120 is a pretty significant swing.
Can I, work with charitable, if y'all are looking for a figure, put a figure on it. If you do the 120, there's some charitable things that could probably happen to support anything if y'all are looking for a number, just because I'm working some of those. So if y'all are wanting to try to make, because writing an open check's kind of difficult in my opinion for you all, so you all figure a number, and there's probably some charitable organizations and matching monies that can come in. So
I mean, I'm fine with putting the $120,000 amount on there, knowing that it will be less when everything comes through. But that's the problem. If we're just gonna go from the budget that we have in front of us and we need to put a budget line holder into our budget, then I'm fine with putting that at 120,000.
Are you okay with the modification?
Is that how you want to amend it? Amend your motion to
Yes.
include a cap?
I would say that we go with the
Capital
general
budget.
motion of support, and then we could come back even at mid-month or if we meet again. We could actually have the documents in place to do the transfer and create the account and all that, when we know specific numbers. Because, I mean, everybody wants to support a memorial.
Since that's not a budgeted item,
Yeah,
won't you have to do a reallocation on your budget?
the forms.
And that's not on your agenda tonight.
Correct.
Yeah, we can't do
So
that
the best you
tonight.
can do is support. You
Yes.
can't commit money.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with him.
Well, ultimately, I agree with them as well.
Yeah. All right, let's
About-
vote.
So we have a motion and a second for general support at this time. Can we have roll call?
Counselor Hires,
Yes.
Counselor Ratliff,
Yes.
Counselor Long,
Yes.
Counselor Combs,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item number 7, discussion and possible action to reallocate and amend the 2019-2020 budget due to omission of lease purchase items for street department. That's Finance Director Danya Curtis is not here yet. Any part of this?
Everything should have been. Thank you.
I believe it is a lease purchase agreement that was left off the list of required items.
There were a couple of things. There was the lease purchase for the street department. There was also, the salaries. I believe 3 employees.
The only thing we got in the packet was a $46,000 reallocation for a truck with oil distributor.
That was the one, that's the one right there with the vehicle.
Yeah,
That
that's,
is all that we have.
that's all that's in our packet.
That's all that's on the agenda.
That's all that's
So
on.
you take action on it.
That's the only thing that should have done.
We do have other items that we will need to address at a later date, so.
Make a motion to approve the reallocation.
Second.
There's been a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, if we could have roll call.
Counselor Ratliff,
Yes.
Counselor Long,
Yes.
Counselor Combs,
Yes.
Counselor Hires,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item number 8, discussion possible action to follow the airport board's recommendation to approve Tom Farmer to begin construction of and build a private hangar on site number 37 on the airport layout, following the build plans that Mr. Farmer has provided.
Here again, plans are in there. The board met on it, the airport board, they were in agreement with it. Airport manager was in agreement with it.
Does Tom Farmer currently have a lease for that spot?
I believe so.
That was approved ahead of time.
Okay.
I mean, we've done these in the past on a couple of them.
It's probably irrelevant, and I don't know why that matters, but is Mr. Farmer is a resident of Wagner? It says that we've changed on here from,
I think we have several people out there that lease those that are not.
it's close to Wagner, closest one.
We've got a better airport.
It is a 5,000-foot runway, depending on the type of plane it is.
Clint, have you looked at the plans? Does it meet code and any specifications that you might consider?
We have, we really dealt with the land disturbing permit aspect of it. We haven't seen it as, I think it's a kit type pole barn setup. So we haven't seen the plans for that. We've just seen his application for land disturbing activities.
So, Clint, would you suggest we table this until you have all the information to make the decision?
No, we won't let him build it until we give him a permit. So, and it doesn't matter really what,
Okay,
if you guys approve it, he doesn't get to do it until we get a building permit.
okay.
Yeah, you just need to be very clear though on your motion if that's the case, because the agenda item says to begin construction.
It does say to begin construction.
But part of the
So does-
construction is to get the permit.
This is the, I don't know we've done this before, so I'm new to this. But is probably the reason it's coming to us like this is because it's a private hangar, and so it's something that he's building on city property, rather than the city building a building on city property, rather than us building a building on city property. But then and I don't know that, I'm just shooting from the hip here. But then my real question in all of that is there, once it's constructed on city property, it's now tied to the land. So does that make it
Those are
the
all
city's?
long-term leases.
And so now it's our property and he's leasing it for,
There's some out there that have 99-year leases.
so then do we become in charge of the upkeep and all of that? Or is that part of the leases that they're in charge of all
They're
of
in
it?
charge of maintenance of their building.
And we've talked about this before, Ed, on our drive-through. How do we enforce that maintenance?
Through the airport board. We just had one of those where we had an individual out there that didn't have a door. We were gonna have a code enforcement go out there because of what was stored in there, and we were able to, between the city and the airport board,
You're talking about the storage unit one.
right, make them conform to what's needed out there.
Yeah, we also have the full backing of the FAA too. They have strict guidelines.
And so, but our code enforcement can do its thing. enforce.
Same with the airport board.
So, but did I hear you say we do or we don't have a lease in place for this property yet, for this lot?
I think this one is leased. I know you guys agreed to it, but I don't believe.
I think there's a lease.
There's an existing lease, but I don't believe the name's been transferred yet, has it?
No, we transferred it, I believe, last month or maybe the month before.
Who would sign a lease like that?
It would be approved by the airport board,
But who would do the actual signature on that lease?
I believe. I'm not sure, honestly.
The last one was before I came on board.
So Dr. Haney? Would
Yeah.
Dr. Haney
Yeah,
be
no.
the,
He's the president.
He's the president.
does he have the authority to sign a
To
contract on
lease
behalf
the
of the city?
city property?
So he doesn't have the authority to do that, right?
I
Under the charter?
wouldn't think so.
Some of these leases came here, but
I mean, we just had one that came to the city council.
I definitely had
We
to
approved
transfer
it, it
this.
should have been signed.
If that's the question I would have before, and maybe I should have brought that
Does
to
that need to
the
be-
I apologize.
Maybe it should be in this packet with this contract to build.
And when you approve the transfer of the lease, we're approving that.
Right.
I thought Kelly was gonna be here and possibly, the board president.
So do we want to table this till we have a chance to look at all those documents, so we're all on one page? That
So
would
in
be
a hurry
my-
to build?
I would say table.
2 weeks? Table or no action?
If you take no action, it doesn't automatically come back.
Okay,
If you
well,
take
I
no
make a
action-
motion that we table it till the next meeting.
Second.
There's a motion second. Any discussion? If not, roll call.
Counselor Long?
Yes.
Counselor Combs?
Yes.
Counselor Hires?
Yes.
Counselor Rattler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Number 9, discussion and possible action to accept an agreement between the city of Tahlequah and NOPA. Mr. Carr.
I met with Jim Reagan. We went through the contract. We made several changes to it. It was also looked over by Mr. Lloyd. And everything was, they're fine with the way it's worded. We did change a few things on it. Has everybody had a chance to look at it?
I see Randy's here. Randy, how do you feel about it?
It's a good contract. It follows the language in the 2006 agreement. Most of the technical language has just been updated to meet current times. The only small changes were really the monetary issues, since TPWA is no longer part of that agreement.
You said there were several changes. We don't have the original in front of us. Do you remember what any of those major changes might have been?
No, it's mostly superficial, such as the type of software used, the type of PCs, computers installed, what our standards are. We have newer standards with the newer days rather than the old with the old software.
So I have the original here in front of me if anybody would like to look at it. Some of the main things that were changed, does anybody like to look at it? Are the percentages, because the way the percentages were before, TPWA was involved. Now that they're out of the picture, the percentages have changed.
So is it more of a 50-50 split now?
No, they don't have enough equipment over there and computers for this to be a 50-50. So if you look at second to the last, let's see. The second to the last page, table 1. So that'll show the percentage change right there. Presently, we do the existing with Windstream and with Consolidated Communications. As soon as the infrastructure is completed, that Windstream will go away and this will have to come back before council to get this changed. And but there's nothing we can do until the infrastructure is in place, and they're fine with paying that additional cost. So if you look at the ComSec for the position, it's they pay half of one person. They pay 1/3 of Windstream and 1/4 of the projected Consolidated Communications. So presently, the total cost would be $2,025.75. And there's a breakdown what the monthly and the annual would be. Now, starting next year, that price will go up. So this year, they're going to be paying $15,000. Next year, that'll be increased to $2,010.79.
It has a 30-day out if either party's not happy to, just FYI.
And you're okay with all the other language, Grant?
Yeah, I've gone through with that, so.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement between the City of Tahlequah and NOPFA.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Further discussion? Not roll call?
Counselor Combs?
Abstain.
Counselor Hires?
Yes.
Counselor Ratliff?
Yes.
Counselor Long?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, item number 10, discussion and possible action to renew the contract with Scott Media and or enter into an agreement with Scott Media for videography services. Counselor Hires.
All right, so I put both of these items on the agenda because I realized, well, we're only talking about one, but I'll say both of them right now because I realized that our current contract ended on June 30th, so yesterday, and so starting with today, neither one of these videography contracts were, I guess, technically going. So as an abundance of caution, I put them on the agenda to have the discussion to talk about them. So I know that Ms. Murphy has some stats and whatnot to talk about with these, so if it's all right with the mayor, we can bring her up and
That would be great.
she can talk to us a little bit about the services that we have and what we want those to look like moving forward.
Lou,
Hello.
I really just, I have some papers that I can hand out so you guys can take a look at them first.
Oh, okay, it's not, I take one and pass it around, is that what you're saying?
No, this kind of, it's just one packet.
Oh, it's, okay.
And here's you two. You can start with that.
So these are 3 different packets, correct?
Yeah. I didn't exactly know what was going to be required of what you might want from me, so I was kind of just going to answer questions if you had any.
I do have.
Yes.
So I was looking for the repository of videos, and I found some on YouTube. Is that the only place they're found, or do we also have them on our website or other videos elsewhere?
Right, so we're just talking about number 10 right now?
Yes.
Okay, so number 10, yes, they are deposited on YouTube, and then they're shared on our website. On the bottom right-hand corner, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of our website, there's 3 videos. And I can upload as many really, but I put 3 on there at a time, and then also on our Facebook.
Okay. So what I found on YouTube was 62 videos. And we contracted for 10 per month for a either 10 or 11 month period.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay, so did we pay the full 2,000 per month regardless of how many videos we get, or is that amount adjusted based on how many were actually produced?
I couldn't speak to what his checks were. What I can say is, with this being the first contract that I assume the city's done with this kind of service, we kind of guessed at 10 per month. I feel like I asked probably extra out of him throughout the year, asked for extra B-roll, asked for extra photos to go on press releases if I wanted an aerial. I often called him sometimes the night before, the day of, if I needed something. So in the contract itself, that wasn't included because I didn't necessarily anticipate wanting him to do those kinds of things. So I feel like I might have done him a disadvantage in tying him into 10. But to answer your question, 62 is less than what was required. But I feel like I asked.
Do you have those numbers, Jamie, that I asked you to pull? So there were times when either due to scheduling conflict with different people or due to the weather, one of the things we asked him to do were B footage for future.
I think you guys have a copy.
And where do you keep those?
I don't think what you passed out got around to us.
Well,
But she's still looking
yeah,
at it.
there's a lot of terms and information here that's, the metrics are interesting.
So
The
can you tell
copy
where
of-
the B footage is all at?
He has a copy of that.
But you have access, right?
Yeah, if I want it, I ask him for it, yeah.
Now, Ed, I asked if you would provide a copy of the contract to the counselors. Did they all get a copy of the contract?
Right, you guys have that, and that has included, I think,
The
his
only-
B-roll footage and
The only
stuff.
thing I handed out was what was supplied to me by Bernard Media and Scott Media. They didn't give me a contract other than what they supplied, and everybody should have a copy.
I believe the one that you have that Scott turned in was kind of like an overview of what he's given throughout the year.
Okay. So, counselors, would any of you like to see the actual contract? Stephen, I see that you have one in your hand. Trey, do you need
You
one?
sent it to us.
Is it the existing one?
Yes.
The existing
That right
contract?
now.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Make sure everybody had that. Okay, so I went through and pulled a list of the 62 that were out on YouTube and noted the length of each video and the number of views per video. So there are 2,044 views spread out over those 62 videos. And at that rate, if we paid the full 2,000 per month for the 10-month period, it's $9.78 per view.
And you're just counting YouTube, correct?
Correct.
So you have to also go in and take into account social media, which is far larger of a presence, I would say.
That's why I was asking where there was more information.
Yeah, well, again, I printed out a lot of our analytics with Facebook and the different social media accounts, and she's kind of looking through that now.
Okay. because there was one video that had 636 views. That was the history of Tahlequah Judge Bill Bliss. And so when you take that out of the mix, it came up to like $14 per view, which was astronomical. And so I was hoping that there were other videos elsewhere.
Well, and not necessarily other videos, but the same videos published in different locations that would probably show you a great deal more views. And people reach for that matter. The one, like you're talking about, the historical ones get a lot. And I don't have it in front of me because I get her, but I can pull every single one if you want to dive into it that much. Obviously, I can't do it right this second, but.
Well, if we paid the full amount, regardless of how many videos were produced, the cost then was $322.58 per video.
If you're counting just YouTube, I would have to judge your amounts, but yeah. I wouldn't count just YouTube because, like I said, we get a lot more views on social media.
Well, but excluding the number of views, just the number of videos, and you said that the same videos would be on the social media.
Right.
So the 62 videos is probably the correct number?
It's pretty close to what I had, yeah, so.
Are these being pushed onto the cable access channel as well?
I don't have access to cable access channel. So Randy says no.
Okay, because that's in the contract as well.
Yes.
I wasn't around for the last year clearly, but is this, counselors, are you guys, I mean, typically are you calling Jeremy wanting to make a video? Or Scott Media, are you calling saying, hey, I want to do this, I want to do another one, I want to do another one, or is it vice versa?
It's vice versa. I mean, I'm just speaking from my perspective. I think that every month, we, of those 10 videos, we know what like 5 of them are. So he's calling, and those 5 videos are each council member and the mayor.
And sometimes I call to try to schedule this.
And so they're calling and being scheduled. And then I've given ideas. I've given ideas to Jamie of, hey, the 4th Street just got done. Let's do something on 4th Street. The skate park got done. Let's do something on the skate park. Kind of those bigger ticket items that the city's doing.
And then sometimes I said, hey, go get some extra B-roll of this project, or sidewalk, for example, is one that's going on now.
Because that's my experience just in the last couple months that I've been here. Is it seems like you're calling me, or Jeremy's calling me saying, hey, let's do one over this, or let's do one over that, and it's not. I don't think any of us are trying to jump in front of a camera.
No, I mean, Jeremy and I kind of try to work together in a partnership, and if he sees something that's a good idea, kind of run it through Ed first and make sure that that's something that he could see us doing, and then we work on it together.
Counselor Long, on my list, I showed 2 that you were in.
Correct.
I think there's
I think I did 2. I remember 2.
And I see none with Counselor Bliss.
I tried a lot.
And 1 with the mayor. I see 1 with Trey. The other counselors who are, there are, of course, you, Mr. Hires, and Mr. Combs, much more frequently. Some of these videos, like on the Brookside rental or the planning and development or update on library activities. I mean, there are quite a number of them that are 10 or fewer views on the YouTube. So again, we'd have to go back to what you've got on social media.
Sure. A lot more reach on social media.
Most of the videos are 1 to 2 minutes long.
Yeah, an average, I would say. I think we've done some historical ones that are a little longer than that, but there's a lot of information. Beth has a lot of information.
The history of Tahlequah Judge Bill Bliss was 4 minutes and 32 seconds, and it's the one that had the 636. That one was obviously well received by the public, and it was a good video. But there are not very many that have that kind of hit. But they did tend to be the historical ones.
So if you looked at a cost per minute, it would be quite astronomical.
Yes,
a cost per production per minute. Let me clarify that.
Yes.
And then Councilor Ratliff, just to catch you up, since you weren't with us last year sitting with this lovely horseshoe, one of the things that I was concerned about is because obviously we have Jamie, we hired her, we brought her on, about 2 years ago, Jamie? To be
April
roughly
2017.
Okay, see, she knows the date, I can't remember. we brought her on public relations, and that was one of the things that was actually, I believe, included in your job description, which we did talk about last year, as part of public relations. And obviously, you have stealthy experience and you've worked in media for many, many years, correct? And so that was my concern with bringing on an extra videography contract for that particular purpose, when I felt that it was already dipping into Jamie's job and her expertise and her wheelhouse, so to speak. And so that was my issue. And I think it's at that cost per minute or cost per video, I think it's astronomical and unnecessary.
Have you talked to other videographers?
Well, I mean, we're looking.
Because I have.
Okay.
And
Well,
I'd like to make a comment from the public at some point in time.
And I gave him a copy of the contract, marked
Right.
out the name,
right,
and he said my cost would be $3,000 a month.
okay. And well, we are not allowed to talk about the next agenda item, are we, Grant? Because we're only talking one. Okay.
Unless
I
you
mean,
want a couple.
I'm looking at something else on my desk that I can't talk about that's cheaper. So.
Okay, so we can couple these and talk about the two of them at the same time, according to legal counsel.
Go ahead and read the second one.
So the second one, discussion and possible action to renew the contract with Bernard Media and or enter into an agreement with Bernard Media for videography services. And again, I think each of you should have gotten a copy of that proposal.
Could you remind me, Jamie, when we did we publish bids to get this the second time, or did we just go back to the same people and say, did we put this like out on Facebook? Did we put it on our website and say, hey, videographer people out there?
We talked about it?
Because I know last time we did it, because I went back and looked for those old emails from Cloud or whatever the different people were we looked at that time to see.
I think all you have to do is put an RFP out.
No, we talked about it. The counselors hires opted to put his own out.
And Thursday, Friday, I knew that the contract was expiring on Sunday. And so that's why I chose to put them both on to the agenda. Because
Okay.
we don't really have, at that point, it was time enough. We would have realized the contracts were expiring, a month ago, then we could have done that. I think that we're not out of order by not doing that. I mean, it's a professional services contract. It's not something that has to go out. But, that's just where when I woke up on Thursday and said, hey, this is literally ending on Sunday, and even Tom here to do this council meeting technically is not under contract for tonight.
Right.
And so.
Tom, we're shady, you
let's
shouldn't
get it
trust us.
onto- It was, let's get it on an agenda and be able to make the decision, get the decision out there.
So we could still go and put this out for bid again like we did last time, because there are multiple videographers. I think there's even some others in this room who would also possibly like the chance to bid on that as well, who didn't get afforded that opportunity.
The first video posted to YouTube was in August, and there was only one, and then there were 6 in September. So we were 2 or 3 months into the year last year before this really got up and going.
Okay.
Well, contracts were signed in August last year, so.
With an
we didn't-
effective date
We didn't
of,
do anything in July, and then August, we talked about it in July, and it got moved to August. Then that first August council meeting was when we did the contracts. So from there, getting the contract ready in place to go is probably that leeway that you're talking about. And again, I think the contract was done, it was just a number thrown out there at 10. 10 is not where, we as the council want it to be. If we want to say they're coupled together, so I'm talking about them bullshit, right? If we want to say like we have the contract with Bernard Media, that we would do the videos at $200 video up to 10 videos a month, because that's really where Bernard Media falls in line kind of with this as well. That could be something that we do that brings both of the contracts kind of together in where we're at. I mean, it's up to us. It's up to us as a council on how we would like the contract to be. And so I think And I only say that to say that, that 10 was just kind of we shot from the hip and said, let's do 10. And so maybe we now have that for the year, and 10 isn't the appropriate number. Maybe it's 15, or maybe it's 5, that type of thing. At the time when we were putting it in place, we didn't know that we would have one council member that just didn't want to do the videos, and other council members that weren't gonna do them as well. I personally took off and didn't do them during the election season, just because I felt that was something to, when my name was in the election hat, not something that I, did with the videos. And so I think that it's not for lack of trying, it's more for lack of, we on our end weren't, there to have the video done. But inside of that, they've done videos with the fire department, with the police department, with stormwater drainage, with other department heads throughout the city. We've done
Other
videos.
organizations, Main Street.
Right.
Yes,
with,
you have, and if anybody would like to see the list, I've got it right here.
Yeah, and so there's been multiple videos, and every chance that we can get out and get a video done, I think it's great to allow the public to see that some great things are happening in our town.
And if you do decide to modify it, I would like for you to consider the extra that I did ask, because that wasn't included in the contract details. Because I didn't anticipate the things that I would see that we could use in a year, or the things that I would see that an event coming up in Tahlequah, I thought it would be a good idea to push that. So commercials and things like that of events that we had. Snowflake, Tahlequahtics is another commercial. Like you said, the rentals that we have, different things like that. That wasn't included. And I asked him to get extra things so we could use those in the future, hopefully.
And I decided with the videos very quickly that, I know this will shock some people in the room, but it wasn't my face that people really wanted to see, that it was great projects and things that were happening. And so really with my videos, that's what I tried to do, was highlight, projects and things that were happening in our community. Just like, the last video that we shot was the memorial. I know that Trey has done that as well, with Anthony Brannon and some things that have happened. So I think that really through the year, we've also learned from, this contract, and learned of how to make the videos better and make them more transparent and more of something that the residents of Tahlequah want to see, rather than just us on a video saying, hello, this is Stephen, how are you today?
Now, Grant, do you actually have the contract that was in place in front of you now? Did Stephen bring that? Does somebody have that?
I got both of them.
Okay. So did he fulfill the contract?
He who?
I'm sorry, Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, I'm sorry.
Well, it doesn't look like it from what I've been told. But I will say that you could ask Ed and Jamie how many requests they made of him that he didn't fulfill, maybe, because it does say
That's what I was saying.
the recommendations of public
There's
relations.
times when he couldn't do it because of scheduling, and so we had him do other things like B footage and preparing for future. So yeah, all 10 weren't done every week.
And so are the views and the analytics and the stuff that you're asking, Sue, is that, would we be expecting different results if we went with a different media company, or does that fall on, on you as a PR, from a PR standpoint, as far as where those videos are located?
Can I speak?
Do you answer that first?
Yeah.
So I push out YouTube on, like I said, our social media. I send, anytime we have any information, I send out to various media outlets, 2, 6, 8, 23, Tahlequah Daily Press, Muskogee, Lakes Country. I push it out as much as I can. YouTube does not have as many followers as social media does. That's just...
If you don't mind.
Yes, I don't know.
So let Mr. Worth speak.
Steve Worth, been around since '74. Councilwomen, men, and mayor, treasurer, and assistants over there. You all have the trust of the Tahlequah citizens, or you're the have stewardship and trust for the citizens' money and making good choices with it. This came up last year, and I'm gonna tell you the history on it. The history is right after Mayor Nichols lost to Mark Wayne Mullen, this came up as a project. Jeremy Scott worked and did not get paid during Nichols' election against Mark Wayne Mullen. This comes back up, and if everybody will write this down, August the 6th, 2018, at 1:40 into Tom Bernard's video till 2 o'clock, Councilor Hires takes time explaining why we need to do $200 an hour videos for 1 to 4 minutes, and Jamie is the PR specialist. PR specialist, her duties I've got in front of me: manages social media pages, sites they can provide convenient, timely information, responds to requests of the media for interviews with city officials and employees, coordinates the scheduling, generates reviews, approves, proofreads, press releases, social media postings, city-operated pages, and other material, other interviews generated for the public consumption. Under qualifications, one of her qualifications on number 4, understanding of social media and other forms of mass communication through the internet. I believe she makes a considerably nice salary, which I won't go into. And I never understood why Mr. Scott was hired in the first place. If you want to actually break down, there was 129 minutes and 58 seconds worth of video time that he provided. That's $154.34 an hour. Okay? I'm going to call the spade black, at least in my opinion, what it was. It was a political appointee by an ex-mayor that had an agenda, and he had somebody that everybody in this room knows he was for Jason Nichols, and then he was appointed a $2,000 an hour job, $2,000 a month job, which many people in Tahlequah would like to have. I don't know how many get paid $154 an hour. I guess one of my biggest questions, though, is this not in Miss Murphy's job description of what she's supposed to be doing for her salary? That's a question to the council. Because to me, that's what this reads.
I don't believe her position is part of this agenda item.
Okay. Well, I once again ask from the councilors, you are the fiduciaries and the stewards of the city's money and trust, and make wise decisions with it. We're already in a situation in the pickle because we didn't dot I's and didn't know dollar amounts. Thank you very much.
Hi there. My name is Dan Cott. Not from here, but we've lived here for 20 years, so maybe that'll buy us a little bit of time in here. I didn't plan to speak tonight. However, I do have some dealings with this. I work in IT. I have to deal with videos. I have to deal with things like that. And I just wanted to come up and talk to you. I'm not speaking about one particular production company. I'm speaking about both of them because I think these elements will refer to both. I hear people talking here about, it's coming out to $180 an hour. Okay, you're talking about $180 per hour of produced footage. You have to consider they have to film the primary roll, they have to film the B-roll, they have to take it back, they have to do video editing, sound editing. They have to do all this stuff to make whatever video it is that you're looking at. And I'm not sure. I've never done professional video editing. I've done amateur a whole lot. But I've never done professional. I've never been paid to do it as my primary job. However, if it's anything like, let's say, a very good PowerPoint presentation, I'm sure all of you are familiar with PowerPoints. All of you have seen good ones. All of you have seen not so good ones. I have to do PowerPoints a lot in my job. As a rule of thumb, when you're doing a PowerPoint, say you're doing a 20, 40 slide PowerPoint, you allocate 1 hour per slide. And I have found over the years, that is a very good rule of thumb. And if you come to me and say, yeah, I want a 40 40 slide PowerPoint. I want it to be amazing and I want it by tomorrow. It's not going to happen. You're going to get a shoddy job, but you're going to get it on time. That is kind of what I'm getting at here. Just because I hear things that are not accurate, in my opinion. And I just want you to have those under consideration, whatever your decision is going to be, whoever it's going to be for. You know, the people listed, other people. I just want you to have realistic expectations of what it is you're looking at them to do. Now, you have 62 video, production ready videos out on YouTube. Now that means you also have a number of rolls of B-roll that were shot, that were incorporated into it, that would count against the 10 per month. But I would guess that the B-rolls are not out there on YouTube. If they were, they would be very, very boring. Now YouTube, the primary people that look at that are going to be people that are not here in Tahlequah. Some that are in Tahlequah, sure. But it's not an area-specific thing. Do you have people in London looking to see what's going on in Tahlequah? Or people in Singapore? The place that most of the residents are going to go to, they're either going to get a Twitter update about the video, or they're going to go out to look on the Facebook page. Both of those have analytics. You can pull those. You can see how many views you got on each video. If you want to break it down by cost per video, cost per view, things like that. That's where it's going to make a difference. And I don't really have anything more to say. Are there any questions that I could help on? Okay, well, thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
We appreciate your comments.
I've got one more item. I don't think it's fair for the mayor, for the city councilman, to be able to push the positive agendas. Appreciate Mr. Hires when you did take off during that time. But it can be unfair for anybody that's trying to run against you all in office. You all also have to consider that. By the way, Mr. Cott, at 5 minutes, it was $750 of what that was for the time that you just spoke. And the thing about this right here, Trey, you did one out to the ball field. That right there gets the point across pretty easy. And we've all done it in our businesses with a video. Okay, so I'd ask you to take that into consideration.
Another thing I'd like to interject is looking at this actual agreement that we apparently approved last year, which I did vote against, just by the way. It specifically says no penalty will be incurred, nor additional compensation earned nor any additional compensation earned for recording or failing to record. I do not like that language. I think that before we can take a vote on anything, we don't actually have a proposed agreement to vote on or take action on, because I think we need to revisit some of this language, and I don't think my preference would not be to do a fixed monthly fee. I would say that we could order up videos as needed, a la carte, so to speak. If I go out to eat at El Mocajete and if I just want a cheese quesadilla for my 6-year-old, I'm not going to pay for rice and beans if I just want a cheese quesadilla. So, I think we need to look at this from a more a la carte perspective, especially since we all know we've got some revenue issues, we've got some budget issues, and I think obligating $24,000 to videos, which I do feel falls into the PR wheelhouse. And just like Mr. Worst stated, we all know there's a business owner here in town who's got 10,000 people who follow him, and all he does is Facebook Live. And hundreds of people will watch. It doesn't cost him a dime. So I don't think we should waste money, and like Mr. Worst said, this is taxpayer money. And we did swear and take an oath with Judge Baker that we would do our best. And so I think we need to, I'm not comfortable taking action at all on the Scott Media contract tonight. And technically, we probably also could not, in my preference, not take action on Tom's either, since we don't actually have the contract in place. Grant, would you agree with that statement?
That's why actually I changed the agenda items to include the alternative of whatever agreements you might reach if you want to do a stopgap measure or something. That's up to you all, but you have freedom to approve, contracts moving forward on a month-to-month basis or whatever you might choose to do. So yeah, the answer though is there has been no proposed agreement to me, and these are no longer in place. They ran out last month.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tom, for showing up tonight. We appreciate you.
Mhm.
We really do. We appreciate that. So, so can you give us an example when you say stopgap? Something that we could stopgap until we could actually have documents in front of us that were actionable?
Well, sure, you can always say if you think certain videos are worth a certain price, that on a monthly basis up to this amount, or you know, whatever you want to propose. I'm not going to put words in your mouth as to what those videos might be valued at for your standpoint. And you have to get the other side to buy in too. They've provided their proposals, but they haven't. So they'd be willing to do less than certain thresholds, it looks like.
Well, it looks like, Tom, you're basically recommending or proposing that you're going to continue to do the $400 a month for the first month meeting, correct? Is that what you're saying,
For the
Tom?
city council meeting?
Yes,
Yeah.
for the city council meeting. And you're proposing $200 for the first hour of additional video meetings, additional hours, $50 each.
So I would note too, by what your proposal, you can clarify if I'm wrong in understanding it, but it looks like he's proposing $400 irrespective of how many council meetings we might have. We might have 3 or 4 meetings in a month, and he still is just a flat $400 for the whole month. If we have one meeting, which has happened, you know, maybe once or twice, he still would get $400 for that one meeting. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, my proposal was just for the city council meetings, just to renew last year's contract. And then,
But that was 400, so on the months we have a first of the month and mid-month, that's $800 a month, right?
No, that's 400.
no, that's 400 a month.
And if we have 3
You're cheap,
meetings,
Tom.
it'd be
You're
400
cheap
the
date.
way it's written. So it could be less. I mean,
That almost sounded like a compliment.
But I also think that
You know,
when we're even talking about Tom's contracts, we've talked about in the past, and I think it's really something that we need to do as a city, is there are other meetings that take place in this city that need and should have that historical reference with the video to them. You know, the abatement board is one, planning and zoning would be another, that I think that if we're going to include, if we're going to keep on this, you know, Mr. Bernard is the meetings guy, then I think we need to add those meetings to the contract as well. And that's why, you know, if something that is palatable to the council, it talks about the $200 per meeting up to, or $200 per video up to 10 videos per month. I think we can add that into Mr. Bernard's contract. When we're talking about the abatement board, we're talking about planning and zoning, and maybe some other boards and meetings that go on throughout the city. Those are just 2 off the top of my head that I think are important that should be videoed.
That's what I intended under the heading other meetings, was there's been a lot of discussion about what other board meetings that you might want recorded. And then there's the occasional public hearing.
But we actually have a contract that we took action on with you last year, correct, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. And so that just did not make what was given to us tonight, correct?
That covers just city council meetings.
Perfect.
Right, I did not write up new contracts for either one.
Well, Stephen, you're slacking.
Sorry. But Deanna sent everyone the contracts that we had for both videographers last year.
Okay.
When I talked to Grant, there was some thought process that we could literally strike, if we wanted to move forward with just the contracts as they are and put the same contracts in place, that we could literally just strike dates and amend dates tonight and move forward. Technically it's a services contract. That's not even something that has to come to the council. The mayor could do that.
Hating to be downer again, but with our finances where they are, I would prefer not to have a large commitment for videos. I would prefer to be able to do videos on an as-needed basis.
Sure. And I think that's what, if we put that in place, the $200 a video, up to 10 videos a month, I I think there'd have to be language, because then who is deciding what that as-needed
Well,
basis is that, then the mayor has 10 videos that you could say you get a video, and you don't, or, are there just 10 videos that we put in place? I think that could be something we talk about, sure.
Well, the previous contract had language that said that the public relations individual and the city administrator were the two who would authorize any videos that were created. I don't know whether that
and we did
process was in place or not, or how that was documented, that
Sure.
approval was authorized.
And I think that we did that. I think with, we've been talking about Jamie, Miss Murphy, and she is our PR specialist. And so I think that is the office who runs the PR program for the city. And so I think it's giving her the tools to be able to run an effective program. And so if we do contract with the videographer, she should be the department that kind of controls how those contracts are put in place, how the videos are done. Ms. Murphy has a schedule of kind of what's happening within the city, gets with the videographers to say, okay, this is what's happening, we need these 10 videos or 5 videos or however it needs to be done, but she's kind of that point person that does it, like we also have that at the Cherokee Nation at Northeastern State University. They have somebody that is kind of in charge of controlling that schedule, not necessarily out there actually doing the videos, but they're in charge of controlling that schedule to say this needs to get done and kind of herding all of the cats, if you will, into the right direction.
And then I think that there are probably some of the videos that really had so little content to them that they could have been done with a cell phone video, because they really didn't share a lot of information. So
38 seconds.
Everybody is entitled to their opinion on how it happens.
So I do think that some of the videos would fall under the purview of our public relations person to produce.
And Mayor, just to interject, I still think if we did put that out, I do know there are other videographers in the community who would like the opportunity to bid on that as a professional service. And I think we could still look at other options for high quality videos at a much more affordable price, which I think would be good stewardship of taxpayer dollars to at least go fishing and see what else we could potentially catch.
Is there further discussion or a motion?
I'd like to just
Yes.
say one little thing, suggestion, and there might be someone at Northeastern, a student at Northeastern, that would just love to do some videos for free or for a class. I think that it's an up and coming thing, and I think that there'd be some people out there who might do it for free just to get their name on a credit.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there other comments from the public? Any action that we would like to take?
I would like to make a motion that we table this until we get have some actual contracts in front of us to review. But also, Grant, could you help me if I want to go ahead and phrase this so that we can put something in place so that Tom knows he's going to get paid for being here tonight? How would you suggest I phrase that?
Well, are you tabling both those items? Or with the caveat of a certain request on Tom? Is that what you're saying here?
It has been a long day, Grant.
So you're wanting to table both those action
Okay.
items, but you'd want to clarify before you table any action you want in any of those items, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the action I would want is to somehow put in place the language so that Tom knows he's going to get paid for tonight. That we're not going to.
You could, you want me to propose a motion for you?
That would be awesome. Thank you, Grant, for offering.
You could make a motion that we continue services with Bernard Media.
Can you just renew last year's contract?
She could if she wanted to, or she could propose just for this month, and then, obviously, or however long you want to propose it be renewed for. And then you solicit bids, but that's up to you, or you can put a price. You can do a lot of different things.
Do you have any recommendations, Mayor? Is your preference?
I think it would be very hard to
Go ahead.
I mean, it's a professional contract, a services contract, so I think that we can pay for the video tonight, just like we paid for the video for the public hearing. And I think the homeless video, neither one of those were in Mr. Bernard's contract, but he got paid for both of those as well.
Thank you, Tom.
And so, you know, I don't think it has to be an actual item.
That's true, but that is also, you know, it got brought up because they ran out, so that's your all's call. You don't have to take any action tonight, you're right.
I will make a motion that we table the Bernard video contract and that we take no action on the Jeremy Scott contract. Whatever it's called, Scott Media.
So if I may, Mayor, I hear a motion to table number 11, looks like.
I've lost my
Number
agenda.
12, yeah, number 11.
So those are two
Yes.
motions?
Well, the other one, no action is not a motion, so just I
Okay.
hear a motion to table number 11.
Okay.
Yes.
A motion to table number 11. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there another motion? If not,
I think that on Tom's, the agenda item is to renew the contract. And it's talking about the contract that he's under, or was under until June 30th. So I would make the motion to renew his contract.
okay, there's a motion to renew the contract with Mr. Bernard. Is there a second?
Second.
To be clear, if I can, just for a one-year term, the same exact terms, just another year?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to put a caveat in that, and I think that we really should look at additional meetings. And if we're just renewing the contract, then there's nothing about the additional meetings in the old contract. And so I don't know if that needs to be an addendum to the contract. You know, at the next council meeting, we can come in and amend the, you know, do an addendum to add the 2 meetings. And I guess technically talk to Mr. Bernard to see if, you know, he's available during those meeting times. But I really think like the abatement, off the top of my head again, the abatement board and the planning and zoning are 2 meetings that I think that we really should be recording so the public can see, but also so we can see what happens in those meetings.
I do want to reiterate that I do get asked about those 2 meetings a lot. Planning and
Yes.
zoning and abatement, a lot of people in the community have great concerns about what happens in those meetings and what is said, so.
And if this is valuable to you as council members, those meetings are on average less than an hour each. So they're significantly shorter than these meetings.
Now you've cursed it.
Oh, well, that's right.
They are shorter, but like you've heard, there's a lot more involved than the recording. But what I was stepped up here to add in, the way I wrote my proposal up was to renew the contract for the city council meetings and then other meetings as requested. So,
So we're covered. If we want you to come film planning and zoning, it's included in the language.
if you don't request them, I won't videotape them, except
Well,
for the
that's-
city council meeting.
I mean, that's how he wrote his proposal, but that's not the motion that's on the table. The motion's on the
Yeah,
table
the
is
motion
to,
is to renew the
renew his
contract that you have, and that's what you said a while ago.
So we could always come back at the next meeting and do, like you said, an addendum or modify the contract, correct?
so I agree, Tom's given us what we need in order to be able to do the additional meetings, but that's not the motion that was made and seconded.
is there any desire to amend the motion? No? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? If not,
I
roll
guess
call.
I guess I need some clarification on like what we're talking, like what Stephen's talking about, planning and zoning. So am I hearing it correctly, Tom, that if you're requested to appear to video these meetings, that the last year's contract would allow for that or not?
No, that would be different from last year's contract. But then again, like Stephen said, it's contract services. You don't need a council agenda item to hire services to.
If I'm not mistaken, Tom, I can't see it. If we did a contract with you for like last year, and then we requested something outside of that contract, you would just send us a bill. Okay.
That's what we did last year.
Okay.
Do we have an agreed value, or just, cost by the hour?
You can go ahead, if that's an issue, you could amend if you chose to include additional meetings, videography of additional meetings as requested at $200 for the first hour and $50 each additional hour thereafter.
I can modify it to that.
Okay. You
And
should
I'll
make it clear,
second.
make it clear who the request would come from, like a city administrator or something.
Right. City administrator or the,
There.
or a publicist,
That's something like just to document that.
just like it was before.
So we have an amendment, and you were okay with the second?
Yes.
Is there further discussion? If not, roll call?
Counselor Ratliff?
Yes.
Counselor Long?
Yes.
Counselor Combs?
Yes.
Counselor Hires?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Sorry, did I hear a request for a break? We'll adjourn for a 5-minute break. Combs, not Combs. Long. Sorry, I was looking at you. Counselor Long had to step out, and so she is gone for the rest of the evening. So, number 12, discussion to adopt ordinance number 1286-2019, rezoning the property located at 280 North Legion Drive from single-family dwelling district R1 to open display commercial district C3 for the following real estate to wit. And there follows the legal description.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. So this is a zoning application submitted by Earl Cherry. He's unable to be with us here tonight. He resides in Virginia. He's from the area and has family here. He's requesting a rezone from R1, single family dwelling district, to C3, open display commercial district. Ordinance 1286-2019 was on the agenda for planning and zoning on June 20th. They voted unanimously to approve a recommendation of a C2 general commercial district. There was discussion at the meeting about the open display versus the general commercial, and the consensus kind of fell around the lot size is why they thought we're dealing with an acre-sized lot, and the open display of property for sale outside of your enclosed structure didn't seem likely to the Planning and Zoning Board. And so they passed along to you guys a recommendation of C2 General Commercial District. Some of the deciding factors on whether or not this land use change was appropriate is the accessibility and the ease of access. It's adjacent to State Highway 5162. The old highway road is serviceable as well, and so it's highway frontage, which is an extension of our Downing commercial highway corridor. Another factor that played into their decision to recommend a change in zoning is the adjacent zoning. So I'll give you a little zoning map. You can see from the map that there are adjacent parcels, and I'll show you an updated map. Keep in mind right there under where it says Old US Highway 62, that is the Riverside Liquor Store, which is on that map. You can see that triangle piece, that's a C2 general commercial zoning parcel now. This map isn't updated with that. Some of the other parcels that are located adjacent to the property aren't within the municipal limits, but they're actively being used as commercial properties. To the north, you have the Spring Hollow feed mill, and then to the east, you have a used automobile lot. And so,
Can you go back to the photo?
yep. That one? Is that the one?
Go back one more with the overlay. So where's the used car lot?
To the east.
So that's outside of the city.
That's outside of the municipal
Or
boundary.
half part of it. If I'm seeing that correctly.
You can see the green color is within the boundary. Matches that little point right there. There's a little clearer image without the boundary.
So the cars on the other side of Highway 62 are in the city limits. Some of them. I'm sorry, of the old Highway 62 are some of those.
Well, I mean,
I'm just trying to figure out where the city boundary is.
The boundary is that green line.
Right. Okay.
But this aerial photo is, I believe, from 2016 or 17. And so those cars may or may not be in that location right there. I don't know. I think this is a more recent photo, aerial photo. I don't know if you can compare the two.
Where this dot that you've got here is that's
the subject property.
And it's a rock house right now, correct?
Correct.
And what to begin to locate here, what kind of business?
Highest and best use of the property.
And it's just 1 acre.
It's 1 acre.
But they want it C3?
No, C2 was they applied for C3. The recommendation passed on by Planning and Zoning Board was general commercial C2. The property owner is actively pursuing other parcels to make whole with this one, to increase his parcel size. He does have a representative here. He has his real estate agent here. And if you want to ask any questions about his future plans, I think that would be more appropriate to ask him. Sure.
Yes, Nancy.
Is
that
property? Okay. Is the property currently for sale?
Yes, ma'am. I don't know.
Yes. So is Mr. Cherry selling it? Is he the current owner or is he the buyer?
He is the current owner. Yep.
So I thought you said he was trying to actively get more parcels to make it larger.
That's my understanding.
Well,
I
how
said
can
you'd
he
have
make
to
it
ask
larger and be gonna sell it at the same time?
Like I said, you can ask his real estate agent. There's neighboring parcels that are for sale, is my understanding. Correct.
And I can't speak on to if Mr. Cherry is pursuing other properties and not only to this property that our
Okay.
firm does have currently listed.
Because it is listed for
Yes,
sale.
ma'am.
Yes, sir.
I have a quick question here. In the agenda item, they're talking
Could
10.
you come to the mic, please? Way we can get you
Okay.
on the video.
In the agenda item, it's calling it a 10-acre tract. And I believe you were referring to it as a 1 acre.
It's not. That's just the legal description. It's meets and bounds, which is referencing a 10-acre parcel.
Okay. But it references the 10-acre.
So you're saying it's 1 acre within that 10 acres?
Within the
right?
10-acre tract. Okay.
Sir, I think the clerk needs you to state your name.
Ron Lander.
Thank you.
This is discussion only.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So Jason, do you want to come up and tell
Sure.
us what's going on, what you got?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name's Jason Wright with Century 21 Wright Real Estate. Our firm represents the owner of this property, and of course, as Mr. Johnson said, he does live in Virginia. He is originally from Choteau, went to school at Oklahoma State University, so he's an Oklahoma got Oklahoma roots. He's invested in Tahlequah in this property in seeking rezoning for future use or sale of this property. I think, if we'll take a look at it, it makes sense on the rezoning of this because it is highway frontage. It's R1 now, and so I think the property is better served as commercial. Even C3 with the feed mill that I understand is outside the city limits, which I wasn't aware of, but that is outside sales, and that is the difference there. And so I think the comprehensive plan kind of points things in that direction, and I like to kind of send a message, hopefully we can, that we're open for business and on our highway corridors, and that's where we're headed. I've seen things in the past not necessarily pass council on rezoning because they didn't have a specific use for that, but I think that's the purposes for the zoning restrictions and why they reduced it to C2, and I think it's a great fit for the property.
So there's no intention, Mr. Cherry, the owner of the property, he's attempting to rezone it in order to maybe increase the value of it, because it is, probably that is highway frontage, so it's whether or not he keeps it and adds on to it or sells it or whatever, that doesn't really matter, right?
Right. So I can't, speak to his use or his plans, and that may hinge on the zoning or type of zoning and, the value. We don't know. I mean, it's worth what someone's willing to pay for it, but it seems to make sense on the highway, on Downing, on that side of town that would make the most sense of use for that property.
Any new structure on that side of town would be a blessing.
Sure.
It would attract that type of buyer.
Thanks, Jason.
You bet. Thank you.
No action. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 13, discussion and possible action to adopt ordinance number 1287-2019 and the corresponding resolution authorizing the calling and holding of an election in the city of Tahlequah, Cherokee County, state of Oklahoma, for the purpose of submitting to the registered qualified electors of the city of Tahlequah, Cherokee County, Oklahoma, the question of their approval or rejection of ordinance number 1287-1219 related to levy of a 0.5% city sales tax to provide funds for the construction, improvement, maintenance, operation, and repair of city roads, bridges, sidewalks, and public infrastructure.
And I'd start with, there's a typo in that item, it's just discussion only tonight.
Oh, that is true. So discussion only tonight.
Well, I think this is just as good of a platform as probably, to be transparent with the public is, an opportunity that we're gonna get. I think based upon, and I'm not an accountant and I'm not, the treasurer clearly, but we don't as a city, I feel, it's my opinion that we don't as a city have a revenue source that's gonna allow us for any projects unless we do something like what's proposed here. I mean, I don't see, and to add to that, just the completion of the bond issues like Mr. Worth spoke to earlier. What if we fall short, what if we fall short on South Muskogee Avenue or Grand Avenue or, the half a dozen that are left? I don't think people are just, I don't think that the people of this town are going to want, they clearly want the projects done, and they surely don't want one halfway done. So that's my opinion. I think that, this is discussion only, clearly. But
I did put together a list of things related to this. Would you like me to read that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because the half-cent sales tax funding in the 2009 bond project will end in September, the proposed half-cent tax will not result in a greater than current sales tax rate for the city. Issuing bonds to provide funds for public projects is expensive. The city of Tahlequah borrowed $9,375,000 in 2009, and based on a 5.72% average interest rate over 10 years, paid interest in the amount of approximately $3,500,000. Legal fees and other costs of issuing bonds added to that expense. The 2013 bond project reflected principal of $24,455,000 with projected interest expense of $7,490,000. Cost of issuance was $740,000. Our experience with the 2013 bonds is that a large sum of money becomes immediately accessible, but it takes a much longer period to acquire right-of-way, develop engineering plans, coordinate with utility companies, etc., to complete infrastructure projects. Expecting projects to be finished within 2 years, in retrospect, was not a reasonable expectation. There are still major road projects which remain to be accomplished, which will use funds from the 2013 bond issuance. A consistent, ongoing program to address current road and sidewalk repair and expansion is desired by many in the community. If this sales tax is approved, approximately $1.5 million per year will be going into a dedicated account for current road, sidewalk repair and improvement, as well as expansion of those systems as needed. By the time current bond funds are invested, the savings fund will be large enough to address the next major project. Consistent funding will allow for consistent planning, engineering, and for public input. Defined purpose of revenues was to make capital improvements providing for the construction, improvement, maintenance, operation, and repair to the streets, alleys, roadways, bridges, sidewalks, and public infrastructure of the city by holding said revenues in a designated account and paying said capital improvements directly from said account. And if passed, this sales tax cannot be used for anything other than the items listed as provides by the Oklahoma Constitution, Article 10, Section 19. Every act enacted by the legislature and every ordinance and resolution passed by any county, city, town, or municipal board or local legislative body levying a tax shall specify distinctly the purpose for which said tax is levied, and no tax levied and collected for one purpose shall ever be devoted to another purpose. So hopefully that helps to explain the thought process behind this proposal.
Grant, you and I discussed, you said that initially in 1962 or 67 that the city levied a 1% sales tax. Its first 1% sales tax, is that right?
Yeah, that's bring up the code for your dates, but
1974, we took on our second. And then in 2002, there was the first bond issue for roughly $2 million. In 2009, there was this bond issue that's rolling off. One of them was 0.5%. This other one was 0.5%. The one in 2013 was for 0.75%. And so this one essentially, once the 2009 bond issue rolls off in September, and then our tax rate will stay the same, what our current collection is 3.25% of the 9.5 city sales tax, or 9.5 was levied in the city. Well, that sounds fairly close, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I think to me, you know, the benefit, and I've said this, and I'm still, you know, a proponent of the bond issue that we have now. I think the infrastructure and the things that, even what has been done, even though it's not completed, I think there's just, municipalities don't have the access to funds to pay for things like this. And so we have, our budget is set to maintain. We're trying to just maintain. We can't really add anything on as far as I see. So I think this is the road we would go.
Yeah, 98% of our, probably 99.5% of our revenue is from city sales tax. And, you know, until things change at the state level, that's what it's always going to be. This particular sales tax it's not going to raise our taxes, it's going to maintain them where they're at. like what you said. So, let's see.
I think the sales tax is a good idea, dedicating it that, but I think you're gonna have trouble selling it to the residents of the city until you account for the bond money that was supposed to be used for these projects that was voted on in, 2013. I think you need to get a good accounting of exactly where all that money's gone, or you're not gonna get the support.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I've talked to a lot of people about it, so I think you need to get your ducks in a row
I
on
agree,
that one.
that's, like Steve, I've sent an email, and that's since, what have we been here, 60 days, 65 days?
Yeah, there's
so-
two of you are new to this, and it's not your fault, but there's things have not been done
I
that were
think
promised.
I think that the public needs to see an itemized list, and I think that they deserve that. I mean, they paid for it, or we've all paid for it, so it really needs to come down, down at the bottom, you got $23 million or 22.4, so where's that, where'd it go?
Where did it go?
And I think that all that clearly will be presented and will be available, hopefully, to the public long before this thing gets voted on.
Maybe if you can post it on the city's webpage, would be a good place for it.
I'm sure once it comes out, once we get, hard data, it'll be everywhere.
All right, thank you.
I'll make a recommendation to council on this. Like he said, the whole city's kind of got to scald the hindquarters by the 2013 bond issue. And bottom line, I'd love to say that it's going to be there, but I've visited with many of you, and the money's probably not going to be there. And one of the things that I would ask the council to think about is, at least under the way I see this is wrote now, that it never goes away. And I think you're going to have a very, very, very hard time getting the trust of the Tahlequah community after, since 2013, there's not been great stewardship by the administration and the council and accountability. And that's just from my standpoint and the people I know. And bottom line, if you do that, they're going to come back in 4 or 5 years and support you, or whatever the time frame is. But I think if you ask the city to go out and just do a perpetuity, I think you're going to get a ton of feedback, and that would be very tough to do. So
I understand what you're saying, Steve. I think the difficult part is if you're looking at $1.5 million a year, and we're really not talking about a lot of money when it comes to what we're dealing with, because you can't replace.
I'm going to agree with you, but the bottom line is, if you go for a perpetuity, especially after how many unnamed projects that, once again, that the council basically said, this is what we're going to have done. By the way, it was quoted in 2 years, which that was, in hindsight, bad.
They're named projects.
Yeah, they're all named projects, but that was exactly right how you all described it. Is you can't get everything done all at once. But I think if you work with the city, and once again, you all are stewards and fiduciaries of the city's money, and I have a hard time thinking that the city's going to write a blank check after what's happened with the last bond issue. And I think for you all to do that, you're going to have to earn the respect of the community again.
What's your opinion, Steve? Do you like it or you don't like it?
I think that, even if the bond issue is not done, I think we have to move forward as a community that understands what we have, at least in the momentum with the Cherokee Nation, with all the development that's coming into Tahlequah. And I think if we don't, we're going to get really far behind. So once again, I don't see how we don't do that. My fear is that so much of that is going to have to be put directly to those bond issues that are supposed to have already been completed, done, wrapped up. And until we have those numbers, that's the reason I asked that for the first thing. Where are the numbers at? That's running a business, which this city is, and not being able to tell you where the money's spent. That just doesn't make sense. So my recommendation to the council would be to think about limiting it to a certain period of time. And basically, you're asking for let us show you that we can do good things with this. Okay. But if you go after the whole thing and do it in perpetuity, that's gonna be, I mean, I just think it's gonna be an uphill climb. A lot of y'all been here a long time and you are hearing what it is about, you know, the bond issue. People feel like they just don't know where it's at. Nobody's been able to tell them yet, okay? So that'd be a recommendation I'd have. Thank you very much.
I would say that I have been here the longest, and I came on the council after the bond issue was passed. And so the bond issue had passed, they'd already done 2 years. If you're looking at the bond projects, by and large, the majority of the bond projects have been done. The bond projects that haven't been done are the road issue, are the road things that were promised, which is South Muskogee Avenue, North Grand, East Allen Road, Crafton, North Cedar. The other road projects have been done and completed, and I think something has been started on most of all of the roads in there as well. And so it's a little bit not correct to say that the bond projects haven't been done in I don't know the right
Mr.
way.
Hires is
Right
6
way
years
to say
later.
this.
There's gotta be some
Exactly.
accountability.
I don't agree. I
Okay.
don't disagree with you at all. I'm not up here saying all the bond issues have been done, but by and large they have been done, and I think we have a plan to move forward to get these bond projects done. And I think that if we can present that plan to move forward to get these bond projects done, then I think that we can make a case to the city to say, let's keep this half-cent sales tax in to help us expand the city to be able to do things moving forward, as Councilor Ratcliffe has said. And so I really think, again, we're just in the discussion phase. I mean, I think that we should take this out to the community as well. And if it comes back and it does, we shake the limbs of the community and it comes back to say, let's only do this bond for 10 years or, 15 years, maybe that's where we head. I mean, we can call the audible and head in that direction. But I think that that's what what we're faced with right now is the bond is going to drop off. And if we want to continue that to keep the sales tax at the rate that it is now, we're going to have to move forward with an election soon.
And we are getting ready for some significant growth, I believe, and that this is tied to sales tax. As our sales tax revenue increases, then this fund will also increase. So it will give us something other than a bond issue, a $20 million bond issue that will allow us to be ahead of the game as opposed to scrambling after we've already got growth in place.
And I want to make no issue. I don't want anybody to walk out of this room saying that I think the bond issue is done. I mean, there are projects that we need to accomplish. And I think that we have a plan to move forward and to start getting some of those accomplished. And I don't know, I wasn't here when the 2 years was promised. I wasn't part of that sales team, so.
So you said on your notes that you had a 2009 bond issue that we paid $3 million in interest on?
Yes.
And a 2013 bond issue that we paid $7 million in interest on?
The 2009 was 3.5 million, and the 2013 was roughly 7.5 million.
So we paid $11 million in interest in 10 years, just for the two bonds. So I think that's the basic difference between the bonds that the community has passed versus where we are.
Plus, there's a 3 or 4% upfront cost to bring the bond to market.
And legal fees and everything else. So I think that this is much safer. I think this is much safer. To me, it seems like it's a savings account. It's a pay-as-you-go as opposed to, let's get it done. Let's try to do it and put it on a credit card. So, it's like South Muskogee, for example. We've got that sitting on a credit card, but it's not completed. So that's it's like putting a kitchen. That's like putting a kitchen remodel on your Lowe's card, and then all of a sudden, all of your equipment's sitting in the shop, and you haven't remodeled the kitchen yet. So I just hope there's enough material in the shed to get it done.
You want to come to the microphone,
Well,
please?
just something I wanted to mention. You're talking about sales tax increase and putting that money actually into an account where there's been a lot of, I think, misstatements calling a bond issue. It's not a bond issue. You need to make a definite
Yeah, this is a
You
sales
made,
tax.
you made a definite statement as to that it would be a sales tax that would be dedicated to streets
Correct.
and the infrastructure.
That it is not a bond issue.
It's not a
at
bond
all.
issue. Yeah, make sure you get that.
Right. Thank you.
There was, like I said, there was some misstatements.
Yes, ma'am.
Pamela Stearns. I just want to reiterate, for my family and myself, we want to know the exact numbers. And I know it's been asked for. I'd like to know the exact cost to take this to a vote for the sales tax. And yes, we desperately need to do these things. And we appreciate that in a very short time, you're trying very hard to make this available for us. But we're just, there's some of us that are a little OCD and we just want to know because we want to know so the money's used right. Thank you.
We appreciate your concern. Yes, Tom.
I've got 2 cents to throw in. I like the idea of keeping the half-cent. I like the idea of building up a savings account to pay for future roads and sidewalks rather than borrowing more money. But I think Steve Worth has a really good point. In order to get the majority vote on that issue, people are going to want to know what happened to the last $22 million, what went wrong, what shiny items were purchased because we had a pocket full of money that may have left us short. In order to get people on your side, I know you guys like to look forward and think positive and not dwell on the past, but some things need to be known.
You see the bright flowers here, just keep things upbeat.
I thought you were just trying to hide behind the nose for the camera.
Are there other comments?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
I was city treasurer, and there's another person in the room that was here when these 2 bond issues were presented to the public. They were presented as priorities, and the main priorities were roads. The other things that we've accomplished here were supposed to be accomplished if we had enough money left over. Well, our priorities changed on those, and they were done first. And I would like to see any future bond issues, our taxes passed, that we have specific items and specific priorities, and that they be substantially finished before we start something else.
So your opinion is that you think that so I'm trying to just decipher this, Lenny. So you're saying that before you feel like we should keep this 0.5% on here, that we need to finish the existing projects?
I don't think we can do that. But if we pass a new one, that new one has to have specific priorities and specific projects.
So you're saying like
1 to 10.
sidewalks on down?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, that's something, if that's what we need the most, that be the main push of those bond issues, and they be substantially finished before we start on another project.
So what happens if, I'm brainstorming, I'm not arguing, so if we collect roughly $1.5 million for 2020, and another $1.5 million for 2021, and Grant, maybe you can answer this. So we've got, say we save $3 million, and we decide that's specifically dedicated for Downing Street. Okay, for sidewalks and crosswalks on Downing, that's the avenue that we want to. So, but in doing so, let's say this thing passes. In doing so, over here we fall short on South Muskogee Avenue, right? So you're saying we don't touch this money, and this project goes incomplete. Is that?
Well, if we need to finish South Muskogee and we don't have the money, then we tell the voters that this bond money we get, we're gonna finish Muskogee before we start something else.
So are you saying that do you feel like it would be in our best? I'm just trying to figure out how, when we propose this to the people, we've got to be clear as to, like what Lanny said, we have to have, and so it is specific then that it says streets and roads and, and it is particular items, but it doesn't necessarily say, finish incompleted bond street projects. And it doesn't say, crosswalks or sidewalks on Downey. And so it is labeled, right? But I don't know if it's clear enough, is what you're saying. You don't know if it's clear enough to the public as to what this is gonna.
They want to know what you're gonna get.
It sounds to me like you're taking it, but your proposed sales tax increase for these things, and it's almost like you're proposing a bond. You have to put together a bond, you put these projects together and do the bond.
You get a bond and the sales tax pays off the bond.
So you're talking, you're kind of, if I'm
You're mixing
hearing, it's
apples
kind of
and
like,
oranges again.
you're talking about doing it the way that we've done it, and you're talking about doing it the new way with just passing a half-cent sales tax to go back to these projects.
One of the things I like about saving the money and then slowly moving forward with determining what our priority is because I think that some of the road projects that are still undone on the 2013 may not be as high a priority right now for the city as maybe some other road project might be at this point. So I kind of like the idea of being able to change that priority as our needs change. But would it feel better if we had some sort of we had a bond oversight committee at one point, if we had a oversight committee of citizens that would help determine with the council what those priorities would be and jointly determined, so it's not just in the hands of the council or just in the hands of the city on what the priority or the next priority might be for the expenditure of those funds?
Well, we've gone down that path before, and it didn't really work.
Okay.
To some extent, though, I think you're proposing much like what we have with the tourism council at the chamber, although granted on a much smaller scale. But the hotel motel tax comes into the city. The tourism council helps really prioritize how that money is spent, and within the parameters of the budget they set and the city sets, they're able to, kind of decide how that $120,000 is spent, and so it sounds like that's what you're proposing on a more grand level. Because instead of 116, you're looking at 1.5.
Well, here's the issue. Here's the issue I see with like what we were talking about, Lanny, is if we collect $1.5 million in 2020 and $1.5 million in 2021, and we got $3 million, and we've said we've put on this ballot that we're just going to use this money specifically for Downing. We'll stay with Downing. But now all of a sudden, everything has changed, and now what we thought was only going to take $3 million to complete, as we found out with South Muskogee, it takes, and that was the biggest difficulty, I think, from what I've seen from, sitting in this seat, is what we think something is going to cost, what we think as a community something's going to cost, or as a council or as a committee or whatever, we kind of ballpark. We use a ballpark figure, and it's really difficult because there are costs for renderings and blueprints and drawings and surveys and easements and all this stuff that has to come together that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the project. To say it's going to, to get bids that it's going to cost $1.4 million when it ends up costing 2.8. And so I think if we put a time stamp on it, like what Steve says, if we say, and then we're going to collect this money for 2 years, and we get the $3 million in over a 2-year time period, then the money stops. The project, say we get the project done, and then so do we start. We go back to the
back to the drawing board to keep that 0.5% for another need that is now developed over those few years. Or in Sue's and ours, in our proposal here, the way that is we can shift and we can go from, a crosswalk on Downing, or help replace a bridge box on South Muskogee Avenue, or we can fix 4th Street in front of Tulsa Teachers Credit Union as the money comes in, as opposed to saying this is what we're going to do with this money, when really that money won't even be fully collected. Any money to do anything with won't be collected for another year and a half, which a lot's going to change in 18 months.
Lanny, was the bond issues, weren't those bid out? We had a projected, those were sent out for bids, weren't they?
Yep.
So when that bond issue happened in 2013, those were sent out for contracts. We didn't just grab out of there. Okay, from 2013 on is where the issue happened in the management of that money. Okay, because that money was bid and those contracts were set at that by several different contractors. Okay, so you talk about.
I don't think they were bid for contracts. I think they were engineered. We got engineering specs, and they put the money in based upon what the engineers said.
Okay, but also engineers, at least with the Tahlequah Industrial Authority.
Shaking their head. He might know, but he probably doesn't want to come.
I don't have.
He caught my eye.
It's probably the one, but yeah, usually when they bid out, if it's left in engineer, they usually have a little fluff on there because they don't want to come up short. I mean, typically in projects, but I thought it was actually bid out for some specific numbers, and I think what you're talking about, Trey. I mean, I see the dichotomy between the two. But if you put a couple of those things in there that are most prioritized to the citizens of Tahlequah, whether that's Muskogee, whether that's Downing, and just get something headed in the right direction where they see that, the whole town's going to be, I mean, to me, the whole town loves this town. We're going to get together behind it. But the bottom line is they want some accountability, and I just don't think that they're going to bid on that thing with an open end. And that would be my only thing for you all to consider.
Plus, if you're collecting this money and trying to get enough to do something in the future, that price, what we're going for, it's just going to be way out there. It's going to be hard to get it.
I have been reminded too that even if this is passed, the citizens can always through petition bring it back up and repeal.
Mm-hmm.
So if it did not go the way promised, there is some accountability back.
I don't know how long those projections that were made when the engineering was done for the streets. I know it's been a few years, probably more than 3. I'm not certain. It would be really nice to look at that and have a current guideline, because there were roads they did not address when those engineers came in and did the whole entire, Tahlequah, all the streets. What was the percentage? How long would those streets, last? It was very specific, and we haven't done that recently, and we may want to look at that and put that into part of the bond, because as you well know, everything is going up. So it's very important. And I know I'm not certain any of you on the council.
Are you talking about the street survey that was done, or are you talking about the bond?
No, I am talking about the survey where they went in and looked at every percentage, every street, our most crucially addressed places. And there were some that, of course, they weren't done, and they're still not done. So I'm not up here complaining. I'm saying those costs have long been, they're no longer current, and we need to look at that.
And some of those streets have continued to deteriorate.
Yes, thank you.
Additional comments?
I just wonder if there aren't other sources of revenue that the city could get a hold of other than taxing. And who I have in mind is Tahlequah Public Works. specifically. Why are they giving the city less money than what they did? I think that is part of the issue, as to where the money goes, where does it come from, and what sources are going down. And Tahlequah Public Works, that source is going down. But I think we're failing to see that if Tahlequah grows like it's expected, then the sales tax, the current sales tax will go up. The revenue from the current sales tax will go up. So it's not like we're just gonna be stuck with the money that we have now if the growth happens.
True.
And to Nancy's point, I think, and I seem to be doing all the talking here, I guess that's just what I do, so. I'll just, another example, and I put this on our Facebook that we had discussed, it's the stoplights, and I've talked to Clint about this, just basic little things in Tahlequah that have to be done, that, you look at the stoplights on Cedar and Downing and Water Street and Downing that are probably from the early 80s or 70s, and they're $130,000 a piece out of our pocket. That's $260,000 in it, to replace. So we're 3 inches from hitting the top of a semi when it makes a delivery to Love's or whatever, and one of those things goes out, and we're going to have to dip into our general fund to pull it out and find it. As opposed to having a savings account, that if an emergency arises, that we as a committee can decide that that's a priority, and that's not something that's a budgeted item. And we just, from our general revenue stream of sales tax income, we don't have enough to get new things as they depreciate, these things that fall apart. And I don't see another way for us to be able to make improvements. And I realize that the community is soured by this last bond issue, and so that's why we are switching gears and not doing a bond issue and developing some safe savings for us as a council to make sure we put it in the place that has the highest and best use at that immediate time. So.
But to clarify, it would be for roads, sidewalks, bridges, the list that is here. No matter what that emergency might be. Okay, if there are no further comments, item number 14 is proposed executive session. Is there a motion to exit regular session and enter into executive session?
So moved.
Second. There's a motion and a second. We have roll call.
Councilor Combs?
Yes.
Councilor Hires?
Yes.
Councilor Ratliff?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, reconvening. Item number 15, discussion and possible action to approve the 2019-2020 contract with the FOP Lodge 201.
Make a motion to approve the FOP Lodge 201 contract as presented.
Second.
There's a motion second. Any discussion? If not, roll call.
Councilor Hires?
Yes.
Councilor Ratliff?
Yes.
Councilor Combs?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, item number 16, discussion mid-month special meeting. We do have amendments to the budget that would need to be brought forward at some point. Do we have other things that we need a mid-month?
Do we need the media deal on there? Item 10.
I cannot be here on the 15th.
It wasn't tabled, was it?
It was not tabled.
Oh, okay. So it just died.
And do we want to take action on item number 13? With the sales
That's
tax.
the date of the mid-month meeting.
We don't have one set. That's
That's why we're talking
Steven's
about it.
saying that he's not.
Normally it would be the 15th. Now I can't be here on the 15th, but again, I'm one. That doesn't.
if you're wanting a ballot measure in September, You need to have a meeting. If that's what you're wanting, though, you'd have to have that before.
Before the 11th.
You need to have it the 10th or sooner.
If
If
you
that's
wanted
something
it to
you're
be
interested
on the ballot in September, if you
So
wanted.
What's today is the 1st, so it would be the 8th, and that way Counselor Hires could be here, as opposed to the 15th where he cannot,
That would be a Monday night.
and then that would still fall within,
Do you guys like that?
Just
You don't even set it tonight, really, but you just discuss it, and then you let your city mayor, if you do
Okay.
choose. So let people know that's your intention if you want to. That's not,
We will discuss on leave tonight then, and,
that's it. I'm just,
right. It is discussion, you're right. So,
If y'all can let me know as soon as possible so that I can, because what I need to do is send out an email to our department heads as an agenda reminder to get it done by Wednesday, so I can do the.
it'll have to be done before then, actually.
I mean, I think if we're only doing it on the
Normally, I would be
8th,
sending the email
I
out
will be
earlier
here.
today.
you won't be here.
I'll be gone. About the night.
I would say that if the special meeting has to happen for the sales tax before the 11th, then we have a special meeting, but that would be the only item on the agenda. I don't think we would treat that as like a real meeting.
You'd also take the tabled items that were tabled here, but yeah.
Yeah.
which is what?
Oh, we didn't take them.
She retabled at least one of them.
11?
One of the early ones got.
Number 8, I think.
Oh, it was the building contract for the.
Yeah, the airport deal. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, continuing qualities.
And then also probably budget amendments.
Okay, but since Bree is not here, we need to check off with her calendar as well. Okay. So we will attempt to schedule something before the 11th. How's that?
The only reminder I'd say is that special meeting is 48 hours notice, so with holidays and weekends aren't included, so if you have the 4th coming up and you have the weekend, so it would need to be a quick turnaround if you're wanting next Monday or next Tuesday.
And I'll need to know specifically if it is a special meeting just for an item because of the email purposes to the department.
Okay. So item number, I'm sorry,
Motion to adjourn?
there's a motion,
so moved.
Second, you mean?
roll call?
Counselor Ratliff?
Yes.
Counselor Combs?
Yes.
Counselor Hires?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.